Okay, so I was listening to a lecture by Jamie Oliver, famous chef. You probably all heard of him. And he was talking, he's doing these incredible projects in different schools in the States and in England. And he was just talking about how so many of these kids are in school and they're not getting educated on very, very basic things like what is good to eat. And I was just thinking how I feel the same way about when we're in school, let's say, you know, we're not taught what to do with money and how to plan money. And it's just like one of those very basic skills similar to eating and making food and healthy food, etc. And I just thought there's a lot of, obviously I'm not comparing money to food, but there's a lot of things that were very similar in his talk. And I just felt like if we just took out the word food and put in money, it's really, you know, there's a lot of similarities there. So tonight we're talking about being financially organized. Financially disorganized is when your bills are a mess, when they're not opened, when you don't know what's going on, when you don't understand your bank statements in Israel or even outside Israel, when your credit card bills look a mess or much higher than you expected them to be, when your kid wants to get married and you have no money for it, when you need some sort of life event coming up and you can't sleep at night thinking, how am I going to pay for that? Those are the signs of financially disorganized, okay? I was working at a bank until 5 years ago. It's actually this month, I think it's exactly 5 years ago. And when I left the bank, I wrote down about 6 hours of lectures on banking in Israel to make it clear for Olim. I worked in an area in Ramat Bet Shemesh, as it happens, where there were a lot of Olim, and nobody really understood the bank, and the bank didn't really understand them. And I wrote down about 6 hours, or maybe even more, of lectures on banking in Israel. Then I wrote down everything I could contribute to bills in Israel. Just understanding your bills, what you do with your bills, how you file your bills, etc. Sorry, bills in Israel. And then I wrote down things about just managing your money and being on top of it and organizational. And then Miriam Naaman from Nefesh B'Nefesh called and asked if I could put a lecture together of an hour and a half on being financially organized. So what I've done is I've taken those 15 hours of lectures or something, combined the important parts for this lecture together. So there's a lot of material we're going to get through tonight, and hopefully you'll find it very useful. Okay, so regarding, these are the topics we're going to cover. We're going to cover paperwork, okay? What do you file, payment methods, understanding the bills. Then we're going to cover the second level, once the paperwork's out the way, what is financially organized from the point of view of money, the money stream. And then last, just starting out, what can you do to put things in place, okay? Here's what we'd like it to be like. Simple, served to us, easy to deal with. Unfortunately, the bills look more like this, or like, get the next bill. Okay, they don't look as clear as we'd like. So when we get bills, what do? First thing we do is open them up. I know that sounds really stupid. Like, why would I even comment on that? Because I meet so many people, get to their house and like, oh, our bills are over here. And they show me this pile, since they made Aliyah, of bills that have never actually been opened. Okay, so number one, shouldn't even have to comment on it, is open your bills. Number two, what we're looking for with our bills is as follows. We want to make sure that the sum is correct, but you just made Aliyah. How are you going to know that it's correct? Okay, so we're looking obviously for the address. A lot of the bills have something like this. Okay, they have this sort of graph here that shows you how much you've been spending over the last however many months. Normally it's a year back. So if you're looking at a bill like a water bill or an electric bill and you see that it's been fairly standard, it's like, okay, I might not understand Hebrew, I might not understand what most of it says, but you see that the graph has been okay. It's within the normal range. We can move to the next step. The next step is looking for how much I need to pay. Okay? Over here, there's always a schum l'tashlum. Okay? This is on a water bill. We'll have it on the Arnona bill. Fairly similar. Also says the same words, schum l'tashlum. What I need to pay, electric bill.
Write that word on it.
Sure. Okay? L'tashlum. Okay? Wherever you see that. Okay, that's how much we have to pay on the bill. The second thing we're going to be looking out for on our bills is going to be when do we have to pay the bill by, okay? So on the electric bill, it's up on the left corner. Very frequently, it's going to be near the schum l'tashlum. It's going to be on the same line, not on the electric bill, on other bills, on the same line as, we'll take a look here. Here, you see? This is how much we have to pay, and this is when we have to pay it by. Okay, they're right next to each other. Gives us an indication of what we need to pay and when we need to pay it. Yes. Okay, I'll try and speak a little louder. Okay, no problem. So we're going to get these bills in. We're going to open them up. We're going to check that the sum seems correct. As I said, some of them show some sort of graph to show how you've progressed and how much you've spent over the year. And it's going to tell you what you need to pay. Okay, there are 4 different ways we can pay our bills. Okay, number 1 is on the phone. Okay, all these companies have a phone number. They have these automated phone answer systems in Hebrew. If you do not speak Hebrew, don't attempt it. Okay, you're not going to get through the maze of it. So phone is if you speak Hebrew. Okay. Second way you can pay is on the internet. Also, you're going to need some Hebrew for this, but on the internet you've got Google Translate. Like, it could be easier than on the phone. There are 2 methods of paying any bill on the internet. One is to go into your bank account, to go to where it says Tashlumim. This is only in your bank account in Hebrew. If you do not use Hebrew banking on the internet, you will not be able to pay on the internet. Okay? The English banking site, and if any of you use internet banking in English, it's very limited. It's very minimal on the information it gives you and on the buttons and things it allows you to do. So you're going to be doing that in Hebrew if you can do it. You can either do it from your bank account. Once again, if you speak Hebrew, you'll press on the type of bill and it'll pay it immediately from your account. There is no extra fee for this. It's just a line fee on your account. You do know you pay for everything in banks in Israel. You've all figured that out? Okay, great. The other way to pay on the internet is to go into whatever you're paying. Let's say the Arnona office or the water bill or the electric bill. So you would go onto their website. You can translate a website like this. If you go into the Israeli electric company's website, press on Google Translate, and you'll be able to see the button that says Pay My Bill. Okay? And you can do that whole thing in English.
So where do
You would go to the Israel Electric site, which is not, it's not on this. It is on?
In the middle.
It should be here. Okay? Israel Electric. Do Google Translate at the top if you don't know Hebrew, and you can do the whole thing online because the English translator in Google and that is actually okay. And then you can pay on the internet. You'll need to use your credit card to pay on the internet. There are different types of credit cards in Israel. This is sort of just a side note, but I just want you to know. If you just made Aliyah, you might not have been given a real credit card. You'll be given something that looks like a credit card. It's either flat, meaning the numbers don't protrude. You cannot use a card like that on here, on the internet. Okay? If you have a direct card, which in Hebrew is called direct, very good. If you have one of those cards, you can't pay online on the internet. You can only pay either directly from the bank account or the phone or the other methods we're going to discuss, okay? I'm skipping one to this, automated. The next method of paying your bill, whatever bill it is to automate it. Put it on what Israelis call horat keva.
What is it called?
Horat keva. I'll write that down. Okay? That means that every month or 2 months, some bills are monthly, some bills come every 2 months. Just give you a rundown of what would come monthly, what wouldn't. Your phone bills will come monthly, your Kupat Cholim will come quarterly, your Arnona bill will come every 2nd month, your electric bill will come approximately every 2nd month. You can look at the bill, sometimes it's like 55 days and sometimes it's 70 days. But somewhere in that range, they'll bill you for electric. The electric bill is every 2nd month. The Arnona bill is normally every 2nd month.
Second month?
Every 2nd month electric and Arnona. Your Kupat Cholim will bill you every month, but they'll send you a bill every 3 months. You don't need to pay it because that has to be paid automatically. And the phone and internet is normally every month. Okay? So we can automate that. There are two ways to automate paying a bill. The first is automate it from my bank account. I give the electric company the right to withdraw whatever the sum is from my bank account. They will do it on the last day that you're allowed to pay the bill. Okay, so if I'm allowed to pay the bill today they will go and they will withdraw it from my bank account. Question I normally get is, do you trust them? Is that okay? So with companies like the electric company, the answer is yes. Some people are not comfortable with it. There's another method of doing it. Basically what happens is they have access to take out of your account. This is not the same as signing a horat keva for let's say, for your kid's school to take money out of your account. Okay, there's a big difference. We'll get to that in 1 minute. Okay, so that's one way of automating payments. The other method is to put things on your credit card. So what happens is the electric company, which we'll be using in our example right now, the electric company is allowed to charge my credit card on whatever day of the month it would be, for whatever sum I owe them. I like the credit card method better, just commenting, because then you could see it in advance. Okay, you see on your credit card, if you go online and look at your bank account and you look at your credit card, you can see, oh, okay, I need to have X amount in my account because the credit card is coming out, and on the credit card I have all my bills.
How do you see it in advance?
You can see online, you can see what your credit card's going to be, what your next credit card bill is going to be. You can see that online. You can also phone the credit card company. Their phone number's on the back of any credit card. They do not speak English. You have to listen to a recording. Anything I mentioned phone, you're not going to get English when it's an automated, one of these automated response things. Okay, not everything, but most things do not have English on the automated.
Will they debit from an American credit card?
A lot of the phone companies do not, some do. The electric company will. It just depends who. I know people that had a problem with Orange because Orange wouldn't. So it really depends who you want to take from an American card, basically. Okay? You can put it there because it's not as time consuming. We trust the company and we can say, okay, I just want to pay it, and then know that it's, it's not something I need to deal with. Okay. Then the fourth way that we can pay a bill is via the bank or the post office, is taking one of these good old-fashioned checks, which I personally think should be outdated. Seriously, right? We shouldn't need checks in this day and age, but we do still use them. So is writing a check for the amount, taking it down to the post office or the bank. The post office is free. Okay, if you pay at the post office, it's free, there is no charge. If you pay at the bank, there is a charge. Okay, there's a transaction charge for walking up to the teller, which will range between 5.5 shekel and 5.5 and 7 shekel approximately. Okay, but if you take this to the post office, you'll take the actual bill, you'll take a check written out to whatever company it is, the electric company in our case, you'll take it down to the post office or to the bank, they will stamp that you've paid, and you've paid it. It's the most time-consuming method, but people still like it.
I didn't have to give the bank a check, I don't think.
They might have withdrawn it from your account. You can do that if it's your bank and your branch, but you could go into any bank and any branch and pay a bill. Doesn't need to be yours, but then you will pay an extra fee, which you'll need to pay in cash. Okay. When? Yes?
Going into your internet option, do you have a password for your account?
You must have a password for your account, and just on the side, when you get a password for your Israeli bank account, you have to walk into your branch of the bank, get an internet access code and a password. You will change the password the first time you go in, and then every 3 or 6 months, depending on the bank, they will require you to update your password.
No, I mean the option where you're going to the electric company's site.
No, then you don't have to have a password there.
You just type in the account and
You don't type in the account, you'll type in your credit card number.
How do you get to your bill though? Is it your...
You will go in the internet. You'll go into the electric company. You'll say you want to pay a bill, and it'll ask you, what's your mispar chose? What's this number? They'll ask you for 2 different identifying details, both of who appear here. Okay, you got cheshbonit mas, they'll probably ask you for, and mispar chose. So both of them appear. Then it will say, oh, you owe us 664.47 shekel. You will say, okay, I'd like to continue to pay. What kind of credit card? You'll put in your credit card details. It will then give you a mispar ishur, okay, which is your confirmation of payment, which you'll write on this, and then we'll move to the next stage, which is filing this, which we'll get to in a second. Is that clear? Yes?
We had Horat Keva appear on our credit card statement.
Correct.
It came off of our credit limit for that month.
I'll explain that in a moment. Yes, that can happen. Okay, so the post office bank method works as follows. If you do go and pay with a check at the post office, let's say you're late, okay? You have an electric bill, and you were supposed to pay it last month, and you're 3 weeks late. And they decide to call you up and say, hi, we're going to disconnect your electricity. And you say, 1 second, I paid 2 days ago at the post office. Okay, it's not that your payment got lost, it's that it takes 2 or 3, or sometimes 4, but normally 3 days to go through the system, 3 working days to go through the system for the electricity company to be updated that it was paid at the post office. Okay, and then you'd need to send them proof, and this has happened to people, so just know that that's sort of, it just takes a couple of days for them to be updated. If you pay on time, it still registers on time, even though they only see it a couple of days later. Okay? Payment methods are clear? Yes?
Internet payments are same day?
Internet payments are the same day, correct.
What's the
Yes.
Mispar Jose?
What's the Mispar Jose is your contract number with the electricity company. Okay? Okay, so those were the 4 methods of paying. Yes? You have a question?
Yeah.
Move to-
Can you set up the Horat Keva on a debit card?
You can't set up the Horat Kev on a debit card normally. But the credit cards work quite differently than they do outside Israel, okay? You've probably noticed there are different types of credit cards, and depending on the type of credit card will depend how you can use the card regarding making payments. If you have a basic debit card or direct card, you normally can't make any tashlumim on it, and you can't always tashlumim or payments, sorry. So Israel, anywhere you go to the supermarket, they say 1,000 shekel for your bill at the supermarket. Would you like to pay that in tashlumim or just in one payment? You know, do you want to be paying for your groceries next February? They already ate them in October, is essentially what they're asking. But you can't do that on a debit card, on a direct card, and you can't do it on what I call a flat card, one of the ones without the protruding numbers. Those are the basic cards they're going to give Olim. Why are they giving Olim those cards? Because the bank, if a bank is issuing a card, the bank absolutely has to make the payment to the credit card company. It's not like outside Israel where you make the payment. The bank has to make the payment. If the bank's insuring the payment and they don't know you, they'll say, 1 second, I want to build up a relationship with you. This is in the banking seminar that we're doing in January or something. There's a online seminar that we're going to do on banking, so you'll hear the rest about this if you join. But it does make a difference with these payments because you're given a limit on a credit card. Like even if you get what Israelis call a credit card, which is really a debit card, okay? You get a limited amount of money you can spend on that card per month. So if you've got 10,000 shekel and your electric bill was 3,000, you bought a refrigerator for 8,000, you've gone over your limit. Okay? So just take that into account.
It's the same as a debit. I mean, I have a debit card, and they wouldn't give me a credit card because I didn't have credit here. Now they've given me a credit card,
But it's really it's more like a debit card because you're charged once a month.
It's once a month though. But
It's a once a month type of debit card.
Isn't the debit card every payment?
That's a direct card.
That's what I meant.
Right.
Okay. So
There's a direct card and a debit card. They're all different types of cards.
debit and direct are different.
Correct. Oh, here they are. Okay. So we've opened our bills. We've paid them. Some things you won't have the choice of paying with one of those 4 methods because when you sign up for it, let's say a new phone or the Kupat Cholim, they take your details immediately and they make sure you're on Horat Keva, on automated payments. So there's nothing you need to actually do. If you want to automate the payments from the bank, you have to fill out a form. You can fill it out online. You can fill it out in front of them. You fill out a form. You take it to the bank. You get the bank to stamp it, and then you get it sent back to the company. And then they set up the Horat Keva from your bank account. Okay, yes?
So I got an electric bill.
Uh-huh.
I was going to take my checkbook to the post office and pay it, and I was feeling, good. I was able to do this. I knew how to write the check. Somebody showed me, the little things I had to be careful of. And I realized I didn't know exactly how to make out this check. Plus, I asked somebody.
You need to join a banking seminar.
First step.
I can answer that, but it'll take me a while because there's a lot of things you need to know. And it's a bank. You need to join one of the banking seminars. You ask Shlomo when the next date is.
Show where you
January 5th, we scheduled.
No, but you just, like on this bill, the electric company specifically, where does it say who to pay? If you're paying.
Chevrat Chashmal.
Okay, and it will be like.
But you
a
could-
logo each time?
It'll be next to the logo each time. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Chevrat HaChashmal. Okay, the next thing we're going to do with our bills is file them. Okay, what do we keep? What do we throw out? So I'm a member of the Union of Home Economy Advisors in Israel, which is like the personal finance professional organization, and there's guidelines that they brought out for keeping certain things. So we'll just start with the regular bills. Okay, a bill like this. How long do we need to keep it? Anyone? So some people will really keep it 20 years. Like they'll have their bills from 1980 still. The guideline is to keep bills like this a year, 12 months back at least. The filing system I tend to use works as follows, just a recommendation, is to take, we're in 2013 right now, is to take file, binder, it's very Israeli to do it this way. It's to take a binder, say this is my 2013 binder. This is what we're going to call shotef. The bills that come and go, the monthly things, okay? I'm going to put them in the binder for 2013. I'm going to have all my electric bills there, all my phone bills there, maybe my credit card payments, maybe gas, things like that. I'll put in this folder. At the end of 2013, when 2014 rolls around, I open a new folder. 2014, shotef, the ongoing bills. When 2015 rolls around, I get rid of everything in the 2013 folder and I refill that with the 2015. So you've always got a year back and it's always rotating. Okay, if you ever needed to find something, you have it. Yes? Yeah?
Well, that one doesn't need like shredding or anything, but if you have things from banks, then is there any place in Yerushalayim where you can buy a shredder?
You could buy shredders at Office Depot. There are places that you could buy. The other one. You can buy shredders. There's definitely shredders. They do sell shredders. Israelis are very not into shredding, just by the way. Identity theft is not a big deal in Israel. And Israelis are very not into shredding. But you definitely can buy a shredder. Okay. Our next one, sorry?
What does shotef?
Shotef means the rotating bills, the current bills, okay? The next thing is going to be the longer term. Okay? There are certain things that do not fit into the shotef. One of them is your arnona bill, your municipal tax. The guideline for municipal tax is up to 10 years you should keep it, or is 10 years. Certainly 7 years. If there's any problem, apparently they can go back, or you could go back 10 years on that bill. Okay, so that's one that you're going to be putting in the longer term file. Anything work related, let's say. This could go in a different compartment on a longer term file. If you work in Israel, you'll get a Tofes 106 once a year. I don't know if any of you have encountered that yet. A Tofes 106, a 106 form. Keep this forever. Really forever, okay? If you work in Israel and you get a 106, you'll get it towards like the end of the tax year, a couple of months later. Maybe in April you'll get, next April you'll get the one from this year. Keep this forever. In addition, any pension funds you've opened, you're going to keep forever. Like they're going to be things that you have a file. You don't need to keep every statement from your pension fund, but where you opened your pension fund and the latest statement, yes, you're going to want to keep forever. I normally recommend even to keep the end of each year one, and to keep them long term, just in case there's some sort of problem. If you have health insurance, additional health insurance, those sort of things, the forms you filled when you signed up for it, also keep it, well, forever, but certainly until you were to cancel it if you were to do such a thing. If you have bills, let's say you have your mortgage statement, you got in your mortgage statements. You're supposed to keep the ones, setting up the mortgage, you should keep long-term, certainly until you've paid off your mortgage and beyond. Your latest statement, I would keep the end of the year statement from the last year or two. You don't need to keep anything beyond that. If they send you a quarterly mortgage statement, you don't have to keep that. Okay? If you get, this is a different part of a file, but also longer term. If you ever get a parking fine or a speeding ticket or something from the police, okay, there's two different places you could get that from. You get it from the police. You've done an avirat noa, or you could just get a parking fine from your whatever area you parked in. So you're supposed to keep those 5 or 7 years. There's an argument among the professionals which you should keep, but I would recommend 7 years. If they haven't done anything for 3 years, it's a local one from a municipality, you were charged 100 shekel parking fine. You paid it up to 3 years, and 3 months later you could throw it out. Okay, but if it's from the police, I would keep it 7 years. Just funny story, not so funny actually for the person involved. A woman gets a phone call from one of the area, from one of the municipalities saying, you know, you parked illegally a few years ago, your fine has been doubled, tripled, we've sent you letters, you haven't dealt with it, you owe us 2,000 shekel. So she panics. Okay, I'm going to pay this, right? I don't want it to double again, or 3,000 shekel, whatever it was. So she gives them her credit card number and she pays the fine. Fine. That's over with. A few months later, I got a phone call from a different municipality saying that we had parked somewhere illegally at some point. And I said, I know this story, I remember this story, but there was a reason. Look it up. I had it on file. This other woman did not have it on file. I happened to have it on file. I said, 1 second, you're right, we did park. You sent us something 4.5 years ago. We wrote back saying that we'd parked there for a reason. You're allowed to park if you're unloading or whatever. We proved to you that we had done that. We should have been off the hook. And then I said, 1 second, you haven't been in touch for over 3 years. This is, you can't charge me. And the guy said, oh, let me just check that up. I'll call you back. So I said, no, you're not calling me back. If you're on the phone now, you're staying on the phone. Let him go. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Let him go speak to a superior. And he gets back on the phone and he says, you're right, we haven't been in touch for more than 3 years. You're off the hook. You don't need to pay the bill. Okay, and I was just thinking of this other lady that went and paid because she didn't know. And she just called, like they called her up and they said she owes money, and they did the same thing to me, but it was filed. Being financially organized and having your paperwork in order and knowing these things can save you a lot of money. Okay, other things. Opening a bank account, you're supposed to keep the forms while you have the bank account open. The same with a credit card. You're supposed to keep the forms from signing up for credit card while you have that credit card. Bank statements. The bank's going to send you, just a moment, hold the thought. The bank's going to send you a lot of paperwork. Some people say they get no paperwork, some people get a lot of paperwork. First of all, if you use online banking, you can just go into your door on the online and say, yes, I received it, and that will save them sending you the paperwork. If you do get paperwork, there are probably different types of paperwork they're going to send you. One is a statement showing the last 6 months, every transaction you've done. Officially, you don't have to keep those more than 3 months. Personally, I recommend keeping them much longer. You don't need to keep anything else from the bank other than your opening your account documents. But I would keep the statements because that is proof. And a lot of times people would come into the bank when I worked at the bank and say, I need to prove I paid my rent last year and that I've paid actually 12 payments and they're saying I paid 11. And they come into the bank and they'd have to order the paper. And it costs a lot of money, each paper. 18 shekel, 36 shekel. I mean, it depends what you're ordering, but it costs money. So I would just keep those statements, you know, certainly for a few years back. Some people say up to 7 years back because that's as far back as you can ever be asked for anything. So keep those bank statements. The bank sends you an end of the year statement. 31st of December of each year, they'll send you, these are the assets you held. If you open a business, you're self-employed, the bank is going to ask, not the bank, sorry, Mas Hachnassah, the tax authorities will need to see that piece of paper. So you're going to keep it for a few years back. I personally would keep those longer than a few years back, but you don't have to, but certainly keep them for a few years back. The bank also sends you notifications of single thing you've done. Hi, someone transferred money into you. Let's say you're paid a salary or you've a pension coming in. Someone transferred money into you. Hi, somebody, you deposited a check, foreign currency, and it sends you a whole little box written up about this thing. Those you don't need to keep very long. Like, you hardly need to keep them. It looks okay, it looks correct. Those you don't need to keep, okay? Yes, sorry, let's take your question.
For self-employed, things like expense receipts, think as they come about, those kind of things.
7 years.
7 years?
7 years, absolutely. The Mas Achnasa can come and ask you. Mom can come look through things. So, I mean, very rare, but I'm just saying, like, you have to keep things for 7 years. If you have a business bank account, you're going to keep that 7 years back. Or if you run a business and it's through your regular bank account, which personally is not recommended, but let's just say you do that, so you're going to keep those statements 7 years back also. Yes. No, all the way at the back. Yes. Not that. That's not what I was referring to. That's Kupat Cholim. Kupat Cholim are going to send you a statement. It's normally once a quarter just to show you went to this doctor and you charged that and that's what you were charged. Those you can throw out. You don't need to keep that unless you have some reason. Some people, yes, you're supposed to get that in the mail, and it's 3 to 6 months. All the Kupat Cholim do send it out. Maybe you told them you don't want it. I don't know. It's a piece of paper that can go in the garbage, so it's almost irrelevant. Some people have private health insurance, and when they or life insurance, and when they sign up for that, they'll get it's almost a booklet with the sign-up papers showing you wanted this, and these were your health conditions before and after. That is very important to keep.
Now, assuming you didn't keep them because you didn't know or got lost for whatever reason, can you go back to these places and do they have them then?
They do. Good luck getting it, but they do. It's not so easy to get these things, which is why you need to keep them. You'd ask an insurance agent if you've done it, if they can somehow get you a copy. Okay, yes, I'll take your question in the blue.
I signed up for online banking. Lumi has a problem on their website where I can see what's in my account. I can't see my statement in terms of what transactions have occurred. This hasn't been a problem just because all the transactions to date have been from my Sabita.
Okay.
But do banks charge if you ask them to give you like paper mail instead of?
They will automatically send you paper mail every 6 months or 40 transactions, and they do not charge for that. If you ask them for something, the banks will charge you. Yes. Are you looking at your Lumi account in
English?
No, in Firefox, Chrome, like what are you looking at it? Because it doesn't work on Chrome, it doesn't work on, basically it doesn't work on Macs. Like Lumi account, for some reason you have to be looking not on a Mac and via Internet Explorer.
It has to be Internet Explorer.
Basically.
But the
Firefox works, but not for everything.
But if you go into the Hebrew, there's a lot of English. If you go into the
I can't hear you. In the Hebrew, there's a lot more. Right, go into the Hebrew, you'll really, really get a lot more. Okay? Yes, any other, I'll take your question in a moment. Any other specific questions regarding bills, what you should do with them, how you should file them? I'll take your question, and then we'll take others, and then we'll move to the next topic.
Saving the bills, so that implies that you can't go online and look at a historical bill from 3 months ago or something?
A bill for what?
For the electric bill or something?
So you can get the electric company to send you the bill to your email. Otherwise, no, you cannot. But you can get all of these companies, almost all of them, to send you everything via email, and then you have it in your inbox, and you can look it up anytime. Okay? Any other questions regarding bills? Okay?
So,
yes?
Are you suggesting that we have a short-term folder?
Okay, so you're going to have a short-term folder, a longer-term folder. You're going to be keeping some of your banking, as I said, the statements and the end-of-the-year things. And then last, you're going to have a financial file. This is just how I break it up and how I recommend people to do. At the financial file at the front, especially, you know what, any age. This is not age relevant. I would recommend having what's called a net worth form. filling out what you have, where it is. I have a pension fund, it's with Migdal. I have a mutual fund, it's in the States with Fidelity. Whatever it is, have it all in one form, in one place, at the beginning of what I call the financial file, which is not all the bills and not the banking, but everything else. Okay? We'll discuss savings and all the different things that are available. The papers from those in the financial file, so that if somebody or yourself ever needed to look through it, it's all in the one place and it's all clear. Okay? So you'd have your pension statements and your life insurance maybe there, because that's a financial thing, and assets you have, or portfolios, or mutual funds, or anything, something like that would go there. Yes?
I mean, other than the fact that it's worthwhile doing that, is that needed for any specific...
I'll tell you where I find it, why I'm commenting on it. Because you've made Aliyah, and a lot of these things are very confusing. And people might get a Karen Yishtomot, but you don't know what it is and you don't know where to find it. So I always say, specifically to Olim, have this. Put it at the front so you know what you have. There's no, you're saying purpose for other people beyond that?
I mean, the government of Israel has any right to know your net worth?
If you're opening a business, they do. They will ask you your net worth, absolutely.
You're not opening a business?
Currently, no. Going with the changes we've seen in the States and whatever, anything could happen, but currently, no. The government of Israel do not ask you your net worth, and you do not need to file tax in Israel unless you have a specific reason, like you own a business. So no, they don't need to see. This is for you. This is not for them. This is a paper for you that I just recommend having, okay? So we said there were 3. Yeah, we're done with filing? Yes.
The mortgage statement would go in that file.
Your mortgage would
Not
go...
statement, a contract.
Your last, well, that might make the file very big. You might have the contracts all like in an older file, but yes, this is where it belongs, under the financial file type thing. And your latest statement would go there, your latest mortgage statement. When you take, I don't know if you've taken a mortgage, when you take a mortgage, you get about this much paperwork. So you might not want that in a file you're using more frequently. You'll have it referenced to somewhere else, and this would have the latest statement in it. Okay? Yes?
You mentioned something about a home economy.
The Union of Home Economy Advisors, that's a professional network of, professional, not quite licensing place, for personal finance people in Israel. Okay?
Personal finance can be like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know
That's...
if it meant if you wanted.
Right, no, so they have official guidelines, which is what I was taking from. I'm using their things. I wanted to just refer to where I got this from, okay? Okay. Okay, next is having our finances. So the first level was just the paperwork, dealing with the paperwork, making sure we file, making sure we open our bills, understand them. The next thing is making sure that things are in order financially from the point of view of the money and the bank accounts, okay? So it's a very basic, simple equation, which is income minus savings has to be more than expenses, okay? Which is very easy for a lot of people. That's extremely, I mean, it's very easy for me to write this here. For a lot of people, this is an extremely hard equation and can spend many years trying to get this to equal correctly. The income we're not going to discuss here, okay? That's going to be on job seminars or whatever. That's income, whatever you have. And the savings we're going to spend quite a bit of time on right now. What's out there? Yes? Oh. So that the savings we're going to discuss now, what's available in Israel. Because we see with a lot of Olim that you'll come to Israel and it's like, oh, okay, I know the savings, I know what I would have done back in wherever I came from, but the Israeli stuff is like territory that we just don't want to touch, it seems too scary, etc. So I'm going to try and just introduce you to some of the different things that are done here. And obviously they need to be larger than whatever your expenses are, no matter what your age. Meaning if your income is 20 shekel and your savings need to be 4 shekel, then your expenses have to be smaller than 16 shekel. Yes? Make sense?
So the confusion is savings is how much people think about how much you've already saved.
And you're taking from your savings.
You're talking
Correct.
about how much you're saving.
I'm saying how much you're saving.
Oh.
Okay?
Putting away.
Putting away, whatever you want to call it. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, if you're retired and you know you have a pension till 120, the whole saving idea is less relevant to you. For everybody that hasn't retired and will need to save, or even if they have retired but they still need to save, if you haven't retired and you do need to save, the first thing I would do even now on a piece of paper is just write down what financial things are going to come up in your life that you need to have money for. Okay? That would include kid getting married, let's say, a bar mitzvah, buying a new car, like things that might come up in your lifetime that you are going to need money for. The most important one being the biggest expense in our life, which is?
Child.
Your child is a big expense, can be. What else? Not buying a house. Retiring. That is the most expensive thing we will ever do. And if anyone under 40 wants to retire, okay? I'm hoping some of the over 40s have dealt with this, and the people over 60 or 70, if you haven't dealt with it, it's getting kind of late. But if the people under 40 want to retire, you have to address this now. You have to address this soon. It is the most expensive thing we will ever do. And life expectancy, gets longer and longer. And it's a very unpopular move for the government to put up retirement age, right? Like, I would do that. Like, if you put me in the Knesset tomorrow, I'd be miserable. Besides from that, I would put up the retirement age by 5-10 years at least. Because economically it has to go up. It's a very unpopular move. I'm not running for Knesset, don't worry. So we're going to retire, hopefully, and it's going to be for quite a long time. It has to be addressed, some sort of retirement fund. If you work in Israel, by law, the employer has to give you a retirement fund. They have to pay something into it, and you pay something into it. If you pay, let's say, for, I think the thing I saw today was like 42 years, then you'll get 75% of what you were earning, approximately. You're not getting 100%. People need to take that into account. People need to know that. Okay, and that's if you really deposit your income for 42 years before you retire. So I'm just saying that's a very important thing, and it has to be addressed. The other thing that you can get from an employer, if you work in Israel, is what's called a Keren Hishtalmut. This one, okay, a Keren Hishtalmut. A Keren Hishtalmut is the only, other than pension fund, is the only tax-deferred or partially non-taxable item that's out there. Employers can offer it to their employees. Self-employed people can actually open a Keren Hishtalmut. Just a note for self-employed people, if you are self-employed, most self-employed people in this country do not bother to put away a pension because it's expensive, they can't afford it. You need a pension just as much as the employed person, if not more. So take that into account. Okay, so the Keren Hishtalmut. A Keren Hishtalmut you can open yourself, or you can open if you're employed. Only if you work, only if you have a business. You can't just open it randomly. If you're employed, Keren Hishtalmut, the first 2.5% of what's deposited, you'll pay regular tax on. The next 4.5%, so this makes it up to 7%, you will not pay income tax on. So you're going to pay less income tax because of the Keren Hishtalmut. You have 6 years where the money is closed in a Keren Hishtalmut, and after 6 years you can withdraw the money. If you need it for purposes of Hishtalmut, if you're a teacher and you want to go on a sabbatical or something, this is the money they would use, and that's traditionally what a Keren Hishtalmut was for. It's just a bonus that a lot of workplaces offer it. This is how Israelis buy cars. This is how Israelis, renovate their house. They get this lump sum of money, a Keren Hishtalmut, and that's where they're going to use it, for something big. Just a word about Israelis. Sorry. 6 years. After 6 years, you can withdraw money from a Keren Hishtalmut. And the money you made on those 7% is not taxed either. Yes?
I'm just curious, what happens to the money being paid?
It grows. It's grown. It's like similar to a mutual fund, let's say. Yes, it's paid in, it's held in this Keren Hishtalmut, and it grows. It should grow. Normally they do. They actually do not so bad. So, yes?
You pick where it goes?
You can pick where it goes, or your employee just says to you. But you're allowed to pick your pension fund, and you're allowed to pick your Karen Hishtalmut nowadays.
And does the percentage that they put away for that vary by job, or is it standard that whatever?
There's a sort of there's a standard, which is 7%, not 5%. There's a standard, but they could do something different. Most places don't. Like once they're offering it, they just offer the standard. Okay? And what if you change job? You could take the Karen Hishtalmut is yours, and if the new job is willing, they will deposit into the same Karen Hishtalmut, or they could open a new one for you if you want. Yes?
Is this age specific? Is there a maximum age where they don't do this anymore if you're working?
A lot of these things after you're 65, they don't do anymore. I think with a Karen Hishtalmut that's that, but I could check it up. Yes?
I don't understand what you say about self-employed.
If you're self-employed, well, if you're employed, not self-employed, you're employed, your employer has to put money into a pension fund for you. Basically, it used to work as follows in Israel. People would rely on Bituach Leumi, or they would have a pension, but they got a lump sum pension, 65, and they're handed a huge sum of money. By 70, the money was gone. So they changed the law in Israel and said, and it's quite recent, 5 years ago I think, they changed it. And they said you have to put away into a pension fund, which was not a must before, as an employer, and the employee gets the money paid out in monthly installments throughout, from 65 till 120, rather than a lump sum. There's no lump sums anymore, basically. But they never said that if you're self-employed, you have to have a pension, which means all these self-employed people are out there, many of them finding it tight to live because it's not always so easy in Israel, and they're not putting aside for a pension. So I was just commenting that if you're self-employed, make sure you're putting aside to a pension. Nobody's going to remind you, nobody's going to tell you have to, but you need to. The Karen Hishtalmut is not a pension. It's a 6-year semi-tax-free savings plan that is offered to employees. Okay? That's what it is. And after 6 years, you can withdraw the money for any purpose. Or after 3 years, if you're doing some sort of higher learning or something, if you're a teacher or a nurse and you're developing your career, you can withdraw some of the money after 3 years.
So again, if you're self-employed, you can create Karen Hishtalmut for yourself or not?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
This is in addition to your pension?
This is in addition to your pension. This is nothing to do with your pension. This is an additional thing.
If you don't withdraw it as a lump sum.
If you don't withdraw it, you can keep it going.
And you keep contributing?
You can. You start a new one, and then you can withdraw from that one. It could stay there. It could stay there until you retire. It could stay there for 20 years.
Does your employer do that automatically? Or?
What? Start a new one?
Yeah.
Yes. If they deposit for you, they do it. Okay. Next is bank savings. The banks in Israel offer what's equivalent to, in the States, maybe a bank CD. Currently, interest rates are extremely low. If you're putting if your money's in your bank account, you do not receive interest on the bank account. So if you want to receive any interest, you'll put it into a bank CD. They go from daily CDs, like what's called a peri or a pachak, depending on the bank. That means that your money is on the side for 1 day at a time, meaning you could withdraw it any day. You could leave it there for 10 years, but you could withdraw it any day. I know someone that put 600,000 shekel away like that. They were buying an apartment and they needed the money 3 days away. They put it on the side, and the annual rate right now was 0.02% on 600,000 shekel. So you're not going to make much money here, but it's a good thing to have if you need to put money on the side for something, it's waiting for something. Just know that this exists, okay? That's the first thing. There isn't really government insurance. Who asked that question? Sorry, you. They don't have that here in Israel. It works quite differently in Israel. Basically, the banks are small. The Bank of Israel unofficially, and I say unofficially when I give the banking lecture, I have their wording in front of me, would back any bank if something were to happen. But officially, there's no backing. There is the way there is in the States. Okay, we also haven't seen any banks fall. The banks here are very cautious. System works very differently. So that's a bank savings for a day. Then you have, and if you do it online, any of these bank savings I'm going to mention, except the Tochnit Chisachon, which we'll get to in a moment. If you do it yourself online, you get a better interest rate. Right now, on the 0.2, you're probably getting 0.02 202, and this is the better, okay? It's not much, but that's what you get. Okay, you can put your money on the side for a week, for a month, for 3 months, for a year, okay? All these things are offered by the bank. The bank can do it for you. You cannot touch the money during the period you closed it for. So if you closed it off weekly from Wednesday to Wednesday and you need the money on a Monday, you can't get the money on a Monday. And with the interest rates this low, doesn't, you know, if you think you're going to need the money on the Monday, it does not make sense to put it away for a week. You'd put it away in the daily. The banks also offer what's called a Tochnit Chisachon, a savings plan. These are longer term savings plans. They normally go from either 2 years up to 18 years, depending on the bank. They all have different ones. The banks love these. They absolutely love them. Why?
What?
They love the Tochnit Chisachon, the long-term savings plans. Because once you're in, you're staying at the bank. They're very difficult to move. You can't move it out the bank. You're going to stay there. So the banks happen to very much like them. And even if you're in overdraft, the banks will offer you, why don't you do a Tochnit Chisachon? One of the benefits of a Tochnit Chisachon, if you like very safe, secure investing, you know, safe, secure something, you can't touch it, but they will give you inflation. They'll give you interest plus inflation. Which if you're saving for 15 years, or a lot of people use them, let's say for a bar mitzvah, for 13 years, you'll buy into one of those savings plans. So you're keeping up with inflation even if you're not making much money. They normally work as follows. There are different ways to do it. They normally work as follows, where you have a minimum of 100 shekel a month. They take 100 shekel a month for the entire period of time. You can stop it in the middle, but you can't withdraw the money. I mean, you could say, okay, I can't afford my 100 shekel anymore. I want to do something more interesting or whatever. They can stop it, but you can't withdraw the money until the next time that you were allowed to, 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Okay, that's a Tochnit Chisachon. The banks like them. The banks also use them as collateral against your credit card. Someone was saying they don't have money against the credit card. The banks, if you've got your money in a bank savings like a Tochnit Chisachon, which they know you can't withdraw, they like that. They'll give you a larger limit on your credit card. Okay?
What's the interest on that?
The interest will be similar to very little right now, but it also gives you inflation. So if they're giving you 0.25% a year right now, which is probably what they're giving you, but you're also keeping up with inflation, which could be 2-3%. So you're actually keeping the value of your money, which right now can be attractive for some people. Yes?
If you're able, wouldn't it be better to leave your money in America, in the US?
Ask me that later, okay? Ask that again later. Well, okay. That's a Tochnit Chisachon. The banks very, very much like those. The other things the banks do here that you might not find the banks outside Israel do is if you want to buy a mutual fund or do some sort of investing in Israel, and I'm specifically referring to mutual fund because that you can also do via the bank, and with 100 shekel a month, you have to sit with an investment advisor and they have to advise you to see if it's what they think is appropriate and what type of mutual fund, because there's mutual funds that go from no risk to very high risk, what mutual fund suits you, and then you can set up a horat keva, once again an automated thing, or you could just do it yourself, where you invest every month, let's say 100 shekel into a specific mutual fund, and you can grow your investment that way. Obviously, nobody can tell you how well they're going to do. They could do extremely well. They might not do well. You're investing and you have bonds or stocks or all sorts of other things, foreign currency or whatever in that, but just know that if you're setting up that, especially if it's a small amount of money, not like a large portfolio, the bank is the place that you'll be doing that. The other place that you can invest is via, or have a savings fund, is via an insurance company. This you would go to your insurance agent if you have one and say, look, I would like to set up some sort of savings plan, 100 shekel a month, 500 shekel a month, whatever it is. It would withdraw from your bank account into this. These have a lot more flexibility than the bank's Tochnit Chisachon. Some of them have a life insurance component, a lot of them don't. Some of them have slightly higher risk. They're not high risk, but some of them have things that are slightly higher risk, slightly lower risk. It just depends, I guess, what you're looking for. I just wanted you to know that those were the things that were out there. Any questions on that? Okay. We'll move on. Another thing the banks have here is patsam, Pikadon Samud Matbea, which means you could buy from shekels. This is not normally as attractive for Olim, but sometimes Israelis will do this more, just mentioning it just so you know it's out there. Something that's linked to a currency. In shekels, you'll buy something linked to the dollar. It just goes up and down according to what the dollar does. Okay, I think that pretty much covers what savings tools. Yes?
Can you buy in different currencies?
You can have a stock portfolio. That's already taking it the step further. You can have a portfolio, you can buy ETFs in London, you can buy anything. Yes, absolutely. And you can do it from your Israeli bank account. Your Israeli bank account has a number of compartments, and you can have like an investment account within your bank account. And you can buy pretty much anything if you have a portfolio to do that with. Yes?
I just started to discuss that with my bank, and it looks like to buy and sell stocks here, they charge very high fees for trading. Is there the equivalent of like discount brokers in Israel?
So it depends what sum you're dealing with, which I'm sure you don't want to share with the whole room. So there are, like Harel, let's say, is a trading room where you can buy and sell for less, but you could also say to your bank, that's too high, what can you do for me? Okay, nothing's written in stone in Israeli banking. So you could say that. There are fees. The larger fee that the bank takes is not even the buy and sell. Unless you're really trading on a sort of daily basis, weekly basis, the buy and sell's high. It's the holding fee that's high, even if you're buying mutual funds via the bank. If you're starting out, and this is, if you're starting out and saying, okay, I only want to buy 100 shekel of mutual funds every month, and they're charging you 25 shekel a quarter just to hold a mutual fund, it's 100 shekel a year, you've only invested 1,200, that's a huge percentage. It's absolutely huge. So just know, when you're starting out, you can sometimes say to your bank, look, I really want to start out, what can you do for me? Or when you're really going to do quite a bit of transactions, say to your bank, okay, this is really high. What can you do for me? Because their starting fees are very high in the bank. I know that that's what I did. I was the investment advisor in my bank, in my branch. And people that would come to me and say, look, I want to start a portfolio, but your fees are ridiculously high, I would get them a discount. It wasn't a question, like you got them a discount, because we knew our fees were high. You can take that off the videotape. Yes?
So then besides the bank,
yes.
Are there vehicles to buy securities through, like for example in the States you have Schwab?
So there definitely are. There are investment companies, there are portfolio managers, yes.
Would they charge necessarily?
So they charge a management fee. I worked in one of those for 9 years. They charge a management fee which is less than the bank fee. It's set up slightly differently, and they charge to buy and sell. But the idea is that they should make you more money than sitting with the advisor at the bank in theory. But they do charge a buy and sell fee. Their starting fee is lower though. Like if the bank told you 0.6, let's say, I don't know what they told you to buy and sell, the money manager might tell you 0.2 or 0.3. It's a big difference. Yes?
What are the largest investment companies here in Israel?
Sorry?
What are the largest companies?
The largest companies? Well, there's very big known companies like Excellence, Psagot, just throwing out some names. There are some known companies. There are some very large companies, there are smaller companies. There are a lot of different companies that manage investments.
Are there international investment companies?
There are Israeli investment companies here that can get you an international portfolio. Now I'll answer your question. You asked, lady at the back, should you keep your money in the States? So it's a question I can't answer in front of everybody because it really is specific. But if you're just as a general guideline, if you're living in Israel and your expenses are in shekels, it makes sense to have some of your money here, if not all of it. Some of it, all of it, like it really depends on your situation. So I'm not giving a blanket answer, but it definitely makes sense. When the dollar went down, the year that it went down from 4.2 to 3.3, I was working at the bank. And I'd been telling people, not because I'm smart, okay, just because it was obvious that keep your money in the currency you live in. And as it dropped, more and more people brought their money over, okay? When it was at 3.3, the most people were willing to bring their money over. That's ridiculous. They should have brought it over at 4.2, right? They missed out. So they brought it over when it dropped. So I'm just saying, like, and they're like, well, we need to live on this. They lost a lot of money. So it's a matter of, like, will you need the money? Is it possible you'll need it in Israel? And if so, then might make sense to have it here. Okay? Okay.
I don't know if this is situation specific or not, but are there any tax consequences to bringing money from the U.S. to Israel?
Okay, so I'm not going to answer a tax question, but I will say as follows. The Americans have been very tough on the Israeli banks regarding investing, and a lot of people have walked into various banks, and the banks have been like, oh no, you're American, I'm sorry, we won't invest. We won't let you buy a mutual fund, we won't let you buy stocks. And I should have stated that when I was mentioning all of that. Some of the banks will. You have a Teudat Zehut, they're fine with it, and some of the banks won't. Depends if they have like an American division of the bank in America, but it depends on various things. Regarding tax, you need to speak to a tax person. Okay?
But there is a reporting thing if you have more than $10,000.
That's on a bank account, nothing to do with an investment specifically.
No, but it's how much money you have when you retire.
Correct. Correct. Okay, so how do I start out? So first of all, some of you are very, very, very new to Israel. So welcome. If you're here a month or 2 months, this is irrelevant. Like, wait till you're here a little bit longer. But don't wait for it to happen. If you want to have your money in Israel, if it makes sense for you to have some of your money, some of your investments, some of whatever, or if you're younger and you want to start out saving, don't wait for it to happen. You know, initiate, learn, speak to the people, speak to your banker, speak to whoever, take the action, whatever is necessary for you to get to that savings, or if you're retired, to just make sure that the money is set up in the place you want it to be set up. So that if the dollar were to collapse, and I'm just using the dollar as an example, or the pound, whatever currency you came from, if that were to go down a lot, at least you have some of your money, part of your money here, and you're not as affected by it on a month-to-month basis. If you don't have savings, start small. Okay, there's nothing like, oh, we couldn't manage. I'll give you an example of a bar mitzvah. I know many of you are probably past that stage of your life where you're looking towards making kids bar mitzvahs, but a guy came into the bank while I was working there, and he said, hi, I really need to borrow 30,000 shekel. I made a bar mitzvah last night. There's no money. 30,000 shekel, please. So the bank lent the guy 30,000 shekel, and I said to him, understand, you're now going to pay this loan and the interest back. Why didn't you just save? Oh, I have no money to save. I couldn't save. But you can afford to pay the loan and you couldn't save? Like, that just made no sense to me. So the next guy comes in, a few months later, a different guy comes into the bank and says, I'm going to be making a bar mitzvah. I'd like to save. What options do you have? So I started telling him about a Tochnit Chisachon, one of these bank savings plans that I told you the banks love. And then I said, well, when is this bar mitzvah? Oh, it's in 3 months. It's like, okay. I was thinking, we're 5 years before, we're 3 years before, there's some time. So he said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it before now. So sometimes we wait till things are very pressing, like 10 years before we retire and say, oh, we're going to be retiring. What are we going to do? That's late. Just like the 3 months before the bar mitzvah is late, and as is the day after. So even if it means starting small, my recommendation is definitely to go ahead and do something. And it's more affordable than that loan. That guy paid, was it 8%, 12% on the loan? I mean, we're talking about over 3,000 shekel on the loan. Okay, he wouldn't have made that on the interest. Meaning, instead of the bank paying him, if he'd been saving for 3 years before, he was paying the bank afterwards. It just made no sense. And a lot of things we end up doing in life are like that. I'm sure different people can think of different scenarios. So, there's definitely, it's more affordable than the loan. It's definitely, even if it's a small amount of money, 15 years, 10 years, a few hundred shekel, 400 shekel can turn into, 85,000 shekel, 400 shekel over 15 years, something like that, depending on the interest rate. It's not a large sum, but it can go a very, very long way. So, and it's just very easy to get sucked into that Israeli mindset of, oh, everybody's in minus, nobody here has anything. How do Israelis make bar mitzvahs? Do you know? Or weddings? They make a wedding with the gifts. So, couple gets married. An average wedding, this is not a guideline for you, it's just an average cost of a wedding is 100,000 shekel, let's say, okay? So you make a wedding for 100,000 shekel. The couple gets gifts for 100,000 shekel. They pay for the wedding. The couple starts life with 0. Wouldn't it make more sense? I mean, if I was talking to a room of Israelis, I'd be pressing for this more. Wouldn't it make more sense to say, 1 second, I'll save those few hundred shekel. When the couple gets married, let them start out life with this 100,000 shekel. Okay, it's a matter of mindset, and a lot of things work like that. It's a matter of mindset. This is a priority in my life. I'm going to make it a priority. Living in Israel, living financially smarter in Israel, living financially organized in Israel. It's a mindset. It's a decision that you are making. As Olim, you've come out to hear a lecture on it. You've obviously taken the first step, or maybe you're taking many steps, and this is just another step on your process to that. But I'm just saying there are so many examples I can give of people that do things like the guy with the bar mitzvah coming in the day after the event saying, I need a loan for 30,000 shekel. Let's see what else. Okay. Another thing with Israel, and I'm just commenting on this, it's not actually part of the lecture officially, is there was a woman that wrote a blog post about a check returning. I don't know how many of you read it. She wrote this about some check that she'd written, and she was making a wedding, and it was to pay, and it ended up going nowhere basically, and the money's gone. And I just want to say a couple of things about that. Number 1, never leave an open check in Israel. It is worse than giving cash. Never give an open check in Israel, a shekel check. It is worse than giving cash. If you want to be financially organized and you want to never do it. Give a check that is written out to a person with the 2 lines on it, what the Israelis call a cross, and lamotav bilvad on it, so that nobody can transfer it. And if somebody's saying, oh no, give me 10,000 shekel and I'll pass it on to the next guy for you, sorry, that's not how I work. I don't do that. That's just first of all. I'm not saying this woman could have avoided it 100% had she done that, but I'm just warning all of you. It's something a lot of Olim don't know, and I've met so many Olim that have got into trouble because of this. The refrigerator didn't arrive, and the check had gone on to a 5th person, and now they're suing the 5th person, and the 3-way lawsuit. And these are true stories. They've happened to many Olim, and the only reason they happened was because the Olim were not aware.